2 seconds. That's all it takes to change a career in Supercross. And that is exactly what happened to Jordon Smith in Arlington. One moment, he was battling for a championship, just 2 points off the lead. But here is where it gets insane. The next, he was being stretchered away with horrific injuries, but he would have the last say. When Smith raised his arms to the crowd while being stretchered away, he wasn't surrendering. He was making a promise. I'm beat up, but I'll be back. This is the story of what happens in the darkest moments after the cameras stop rolling and a rider faces their greatest battle alone. You won't believe what happened only weeks before. What does it feel like to make history? To stand where no one has stood before, carrying the weight of a legendary brand on your shoulders. February 1st, 2025, State Farm Stadium, Glendale, Arizona. Jordon Smith found himself at the center of that rare moment. But was that weight too much? Triumph has never tasted Supercross victory. His 2025 campaign had already shown flashes of brilliance, with podium finishes stacking up like building blocks towards something greater. A third at Anaheim 1, followed by a second place finish in San Diego, and a solid fourth at Anaheim 2, had positioned him as a serious threat to championship leader Julien Beaumer. But would he be able to rewrite the history books? When the gate dropped in Glendale, what followed was a masterclass in Supercross racing. His technical execution through the whoops, those rhythmic, punishing bumps that separate the good from the great. Every line choice seemed predestined, every pass calculated with chess-like foresight. But as we will find out in Supercross, nothing is ever certain. And then, as Smith crossed the finish line, arms raised in victory, the Triumph Factory team erupted in emotions that words struggled to capture. Mechanics who had spent countless hours fine-tuning his machine embraced each other. Team managers who had gambled on Smith's talent wiped away tears. This wasn't just a win, it was about proving the impossible possible. The victory carried mathematical significance too, but the emotional weight far outweighed the numbers. This win represented years of perseverance across multiple manufacturers, a testament to Smith's resilience in a sport that regularly chews up and spits out even the most talented riders. Smith was now just 2 points behind Beaumer in the championship standings. On a new bike, on a new team. Impossible. Try telling Smith that. This win isn't just for me, Smith told reporters afterward, his voice betraying the emotion he felt. It's for everyone at Triumph who believed we could do this, who put their faith in me to carry this legacy forward. Unfortunately, he didn't know what would follow. From the highest high to the lowest low, the cruel pendulum of Supercross showed its full swing at Arlington. Just one turn away from taking the white flag, Smith faced a split-second decision in the whoops that would define his season. The Triple Crown format at Arlington brings a unique pressure. 3 races, 1 night, demanding peak performance not once, but 3 times under the stadium lights. After his groundbreaking performance in Arizona, Smith arrived with championship momentum, carrying that confidence directly into race 1, where he quickly established dominance. As he pulled away from Cody Schock in the lead, victory seemed inevitable. The crowd sensed it, his team felt it, Smith knew it. But Supercross has a way of rewriting certainties in heartbeats. The whoop section, that notorious stretch of rhythmic concrete waves, stood between Smith and another victory. It's here where riders dance on the knife edge between control and catastrophe, where technique meets physics at 40 miles per hour. And there was an insane occurrence of events. Yellow flags waved through this technical gauntlet, warning riders of danger ahead. Fellow competitor Avery Long was down. These flags didn't just signal caution, they added a complex layer of pressure to an already demanding section. Hayden Deegan was pressuring from behind, waiting for Smith to make a mistake. Smith entered the whoops carrying championship momentum, but faced an immediate tactical dilemma: maintain speed while processing the caution signals and adjusting accordingly. But what followed would happen too quickly for the naked eye. His rear wheel suddenly kicked sideways, that critical loss of traction that elite riders dread, sending his trajectory into chaos. The slow motion replay tells the brutal story: the violent sideways motion, the desperate attempt to regain control, and then the devastating impact as Smith slammed directly into a whoop. 2 seconds. That's all it took to alter a season. And the injuries sustained were unimaginable. I've watched it back 100 times and I can't point out anything I could have done different other than maybe not on the throttle as hard, Smith would later say. The frustration evident in a rider who knows every millimetre of control matters at this level. The stadium fell into that particular silence that signals something beyond the ordinary crash. The collective breath held until, in a moment that speaks to the warrior spirit of these athletes, Smith raised both arms to acknowledge the crowd while being secured to a backboard. A gesture that said both "I'm still here" and "I understand the gravity" of what just happened. When doctors finally assessed Smith's injuries, they uncovered a brutal reality that challenges our understanding of what these athletes are willing to endure for their sport. The medical report read like a war bulletin: 4 broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a lacerated spleen. Each injury alone would sideline an average person for weeks. A punctured lung is not just a clinical term, it's a constant battle for the most fundamental human need: oxygen. With every inhalation, sharp pain tears through the chest cavity. What we take for granted 20,000 times per day becomes an excruciating reminder of vulnerability. The deep breaths needed to heal the damaged lung cause unbearable pain from the fractured bones that should protect it. And the bigger question, for how long would Smith be out? For an elite athlete like Smith, these injuries attack the very foundation of his physical capabilities. Even the simplest movements become monumental challenges: sitting up, standing, walking, each action triggering cascading pain. But what makes Smith's situation even more painful is the timing. Before his crash, he was riding the momentum of his Glendale win, positioned perfectly for a championship run. Now, he was focusing on simply breathing without wincing, the championship mathematics replaced by medical timelines. Yet from his hospital bed, Smith showed the psychological resilience that defines top Supercross riders. His social media update revealed both the gravity of his situation and his unwavering determination. I'm thankful it wasn't worse. That was one of the hardest slams I've ever taken. Going to recover as quickly and fully as possible and be back to the races soon. Not a question of if he would return, but when. The medical prognosis suggested weeks of recovery, yet Smith at first had already set his sights on the East-West Showdown in Indianapolis, just 14 days after his catastrophic crash. To most medical professionals, this timeline seemed impossible, even reckless. It was. He will now be aiming for Seattle. This seemingly irrational drive to return reveals something fundamental about athletes like Smith. Their relationship with risk differs profoundly from ordinary people. Where most of us avoid pain, they've learned to categorize it, compartmentalize it, and ultimately use it as fuel. The psychological makeup of elite Supercross riders involves a unique ability to process traumatic experience not as warnings to stop, but as challenges to overcome. They don't ignore fear, they transform it. But what separates the true legends of Supercross from the merely talented isn't just how they ride when everything's going right, it's how they rebuild when everything falls apart. Smith's career has been defined by this remarkable resilience. Unlike most riders who find stability with a single manufacturer, Smith has navigated a winding path across Honda, KTM, Kawasaki, Yamaha, and now Triumph. Each transition represents not just a new bike, but a complete recalibration of technique, team dynamics, and expectations. This nomadic career path has forged in Smith an extraordinary adaptability that serves him now in his darkest professional hour. But there may be a bigger challenge to come. The psychological challenge ahead is perhaps even more daunting than the physical recovery. Smith must eventually return to whoops, those same treacherous rhythmic bumps that catapulted him into trauma. There's a saying in Supercross that rings painfully true: you're always just one crash away from starting over. The sport's unforgiving nature doesn't discriminate, not by talent, preparation, or championship standing. Just ask legends like James Stewart and Ryan Dungey, who faced mid-season injuries that threatened to derail their careers, only to battle back to championship form through sheer determination. In this brutal arena where triumph and tragedy exist mere seconds apart, Jordon Smith's 2025 season stands as a perfect embodiment of the sport itself. His journey reminds us of the harsh reality that all motorsport athletes face. Even with the perfect execution, disaster lurks around every corner. It's this constant dance with danger that defines Supercross. The mental fortitude required to climb back aboard the very machine that nearly broke you, to face the same obstacles that put you in hospital. This is Jordon Smith's challenge now, but it's also his greatest opportunity to prove why he belongs among the sport's elite. Was that fateful crash the only thing that stood between Jordon Smith and the championship title? Was he going to be able to clinch it, or was Hayden Deegan going to finish the season too strong? Share your thoughts on how this season could have played out, and if he would have clinched the title in the comments below. Subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on his journey.